made.
Okay. Any more questions, comments? If not, let me take 2 minutes and try to address Yusef's question about price elasticity of demand. So without, going through extensive statistical analysis, my intuition is that the changes in the retail price elasticity of demand will vary from market to market and will depend on the extent of consumers' flexibility with respect to the usage of different energy commodities. My Spanish teacher, who is residing in Spain, is telling me how she is adjusting her household chores according to the prices of electricity intraday. So how she is moving laundry, and other chores in time, to reduce her electricity bill, which is going through the roof. When it comes to a different energy commodity, for example, diesel or natural or gasoline, again, it will probably vary from country to country depending on the flexibility the consumers have in those markets. A few years ago, a fascinating book was published in France, La France Périphérique, about the social changes taking place in France and about hollowing out of the French economy through globalization and about pushing, many workers from the booming cities benefiting from globalizations to the more remote locations, to the suburbs, and with changing employment structure, those workers, have to drive many miles every day, in some cases 50 kilometers one way, to the jobs, which are now in wholesale transaction markets, in Amazon warehouses, in other industries. So those workers have very limited flexibility to adjust demand because they have no alternative transportation options. As a matter of fact, a few days ago, the prices of gasoline and diesel in France reached the level at which they were a few years ago when the movement of Gilets jaunes has started. So probably we can expect more social discontent in France and in other European countries. So I think that this was a very good question, and I think that this question will produce many PhD dissertations in the coming years. And I'll be very interested in reading those dissertations when they finally materialize.
Hey, Vince, one last comment on Yusef's question and the comment that Ed made about this relationship between GDP and oil use. Against expectations, the relationship, there is, I think, a linear relationship. Against expectations, you tend to get more of a drop in demand when GDP is very low. It's like below 1% or negative. And you tend to get more demand than expected when GDP is very high, and high would be defined as more than 5% or more. So that at the extreme ends of GDP, either falling or rising, you can get surprises. And we're having been in a surprise to the downside in 2020, we may be in a surprise to the upside in 2022. Thank you.
It's highly asymmetric. I fully agree. So we are coming close to the end of the event. Let me take a minute or two, to make a few concluding remarks. So this was a fascinating discussion, and I want to